Welcome to Ask Gwen, everyone. Today with me I have Steve, so I'm going to let Steve take it away and share more about what he does.
Well, first of all, Wynn, thank you so much for having me as a guest. I'm honored to come on here and speak with you today. So, I actually host my own travel podcast, and that's called Destinations Beyond Expectations. I've always been a fan of travel, and I think it's so useful for everyone to get out there in the world and see different places. So, I wanted to create a podcast that shows how much we can learn through traveling.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. And I bet you've seen an uptake in listeners because of coronavirus, because people can't travel right now.
You're exactly right. Absolutely. I mean, the want to travel is there from everybody. I mean, we all want to go explore and get out, but we can't do it. So one of the ways people are getting to experience travel is by listening to podcasts like what I do, or maybe going online and finding a way to read about or learn about travel without actually doing it. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
actually the coronavirus has actually been helpful for my podcast because people have been listening because they can't actually travel.
They can actually travel. And so, what has been the favorite episode you have done?
Oh man, that's a great question. I don't know if I can pick a favorite. I've spoken with some cool people, and I've gotten to do a couple of visits to destinations close by and feature some things that I can actually travel to. Um, I happened to be in Nashville, and so I got a really good interview with somebody from the Country Music Hall of Fame and Museum. So that was a really good one. And on one of my other episodes, I featured Lake Apopka, which is a lake close to me. And I kind of talked about how that's a cool travel experience if you're in the greater Orlando area. And I've had so many great guests. I don't know if I could pick a favorite, but they've
Oh, you can pick a favorite. And so, Steve, if you had a favorite book, what would it be?
a favorite book. Oh man, that's a really good question. I don't know. I'm not, to be honest with you, I'm not a huge book reader. I dabble with them sometimes, but probably some kind of book that would be related to travel because I just love traveling. So,
Yeah,
if you have any suggestions, anybody out there, maybe shoot me your suggestions. But
I
yeah,
do. I have a suggestion, and it's one of my favorites. It's old, but it's still good, and it's a book called A Walk in the Woods by Bill Bryson. And for those of you who haven't read A Walk in the Woods, you should. And Bill Bryson and a buddy of his hike the Appalachian Trail. And Bill Bryson, let's just say Bill Bryson is obese, and it's the first time he hikes the Appalachian Trail. And so, and the way it's done is a comedy, actually. And I am in the midst of rereading it, and I absolutely love that book of um, A Walk in the Woods.
that's awesome, and I appreciate the suggestion. And I don't know if you could see it on your screen, but I just wrote it
Oh,
down because
yeah, yeah, A Walk in the Woods by Bill Bryson. There we go. Yeah, you Steve, Steve was actually looking for a notepad as I said that. I love it. I love it. I love it because it's the travel aspect. And so,
yeah,
um, yes.
Appalachian Trail too is amazing, and it's such. If anyone out there has ever been, it is fascinating, and so that book sounds like it's something right
There
up my alley.
was another podcast called Hiking the AT. Hiking, they call it Hiking the AT, but um it's the Appalachian Trail, and a person who's hiked the Appalachian Trail actually interviews people on the Appalachian Trail and brings people into studios. So there we go. Hiking the AT, walking the woods. So there we go. Travel books.
I love it. I've gotten both written down, so
Yeah.
hopefully I can I'll get to that shortly after we
Yeah.
end recording this episode.
Yeah. So, before coronavirus, did you have any fun destinations that you traveled to?
Oh man, absolutely. I've always loved travel, and I was lucky enough to be part of a family who really valued travel. So, I mean, one destination that jumps out to me when I was a kid and I took a trip was Yellowstone National Park. My family took a road trip out there, and it's something I'll never forget. It was just amazing. The scenery out there was beautiful. We saw so many animals, and I'm originally from Florida, so being out there was so different and inspiring to me. And um, that's just one of many destinations that comes to
I
mind.
have not been to Yellowstone, and I live in Colorado. I yeah, but I have not been to Yellowstone. Of course, now we can't do it. I am. I have decided, and you guys know this. You guys know I'm getting my journalism degree. I have decided I'm stepping on a plane, mask or vaccine. I don't care. But in April of 2022, when I graduate, I am stepping on a plane if the graduation is not held virtually. I am so itching to get out of Colorado and book a plane ticket. It's not even funny.
I love your enthusiasm, and I love traveling as well. And I actually have to ask, like, Colorado has some beautiful destinations and beautiful places to visit too. I've never been, but can you like, is that true? Is Colorado?
Oh yes, yes. We're known for, and speaking of hiking, we're known, and I've actually done this. We have one of the 14ers out here. Out here is 2 hours away from me on a good day. Um, it's Mount Elbert, and that has stunning views. And Mount Elbert has stunning views. And I just interviewed. I was privileged enough to go up between Aspen, Colorado, and the Bahamas, and I just interviewed a woman from the Bahamas, and we talked about the Bahamas in general and my connections to it, and talk about beautiful beaches and talk about Caribbean waters. Well, yeah, if you guys need to go vicariously look at the Bahamas, just go look at the Bahamas online. And Florida, Florida is, they don't have bad beaches themselves either. So, so if you guys need to stay in the U.S., Florida's number one. But I am super lucky that I have always been a nature woman, and I have always been a Colorado native, where the point of I can go ski, I can go bike, I can go back country, I can do all this.
Yeah, and actually, it's fascinating. I never knew that you were such a traveler and a lover of nature and the outdoors.
Well, people don't know that about me. People don't know that despite my cerebral palsy, I can hop on a plane with help and travel anywhere. And my next big goal is San Diego, to walk across the graduation stage, but we're going to make that happen. Mask or vaccine, I said that, I made it clear. And I am actually going to be closer, well, closer to a big airport. I have a small airport close to me, but I have access here in the next year to two big airports, and Denver International Airport, take me and put me on a plane, makes me so happy. I don't know what it is. I love people watching. I love the adrenaline of traveling. I don't care whether it's all night in. Yes, I have done red eye flights. And people people laughing at me because they're like, when you do when I fight, I'm like, well, if there's a beach at the other end or something that I'm interested in at the other end, I will do what it takes to get myself on a plane and get out of there. And
Yeah, and kind of what you're talking about too is why I love travel so much is because it invokes that feeling. It's so inspiring. And no matter what your situation or where you live, there's ways to travel. And you don't even have to go on a glamorous trip to Europe. It can be something within your own state. But traveling itself just generates that awesome feeling. And you're accomplishing something and you're conquering it.
yeah, traveling itself. And I did a road trip back in the 90s to Four Corners. That was beautiful. And yeah, and Moab is actually closer to me than Moab, Utah is actually closer to me than I would like to think. I have not been to Moab yet, but I plan as soon as this whole monkey business is over, I plan to get in the car, drive to Moab, and then I plan to do the San Diego thing because I need to see a beach. I need to see a beach. And so I am happy to say that I do travel despite my disability.
That's awesome. That is so cool.
And so, if you had to move and only take five things with you, what would they be?
It's a great question. Let's see. I love music, right? So maybe I would take a musical instrument. I play a little guitar, piano, so maybe one of those. Um, you know what else? I would take, recommended by Win. I would take A Walk in the Woods, the book with me, so I could read that and be
Yeah.
inspired by travel. Let's see. I would probably move somewhere sunny because I love the sunshine. So I'd take a
Yeah.
pair of sunglasses. I'm a big coffee drinker, so I would probably take some coffee with me. I think that leaves me with one more thing. I don't. Maybe you know what? I'm a big lover of candles, so maybe I take a nice Yankee candle with me too.
Yeah. Yeah. And I thought you would say I would take the podcast mic. Oh no. Oh no. You would not do podcasting. Unfortunately, I the before Corona, well, not unfortunately, I was very lucky to do it. But before coronavirus hit, I was lucky enough to go to a podcasting conference in Orlando, PodFest. And so I was lucky enough to meet some of my heroes in person and give them hugs and fist bumps, and although a lot more fist bumps than hugs because of COVID. But I'm so happy that I did that and was able to do that because I thought, okay, I need to do this. I need to do this. And I've interviewed people that were with me, and I said, we're lucky we did that because after that week, the conference scene got shut down and it hasn't opened back up since. And I'm like, yeah, we're lucky that I made it down there.
Yeah, and how was Podfest? Was it a good conference?
Podfest was unbelievable. Podfest was unbelievable. They have beginner tracks, advanced tracks. I mean, I also use a wheelchair. So how I had people spot me is I said to my fan base publicly, I said both on YouTube and by Ask Win, I said, if you want to come find me in the bright orange wheelchair. And do you know, people found me in that bright orange wheelchair. And they stopped me in the hallway and go, Win, I listen to your podcast. I follow you on Twitter. And so it's like, hello? It's like I didn't realize how many people essentially cared about me and essentially wanted to hear my story because and this was before COVID. So, but now they want to hear my story even more because I try not to bring up COVID and I try to make it positive and bring people on like you. And now you have a new subscriber to your podcast. Thank you very much because I'm so itching to get out of there that I need help to get help literally and figuratively to cure my itch.
Yeah, and I appreciate it. And you know what? I think people really catch on to your energy because you're so inspirational. I mean, I'm sure like it was probably a very good feeling moment for you when people came up to you and gave you fist bumps. But to me, it's not surprising. You're somebody who's like super motivational and
Well,
your energy is contagious.
I try, I try to be, but and this is my on-camera personality, off camera. So this is what I'm going to do until the day I die. Journalism is going to be something that I do until the day I die, and that's why I feel like when I came back from Orlando, I realized that I was flying home to a little bit of an interesting show, and I was actually flying home to no job. I remember literally bursting into tears on a plane from Orlando to Chicago, and it's like, okay, why are you bursting into tears? And then I figured out why by the time I got to Chicago. Well, hello, you're coming home to no teaching job. Your life is about to be turned upside down, along with the rest of the world. Nothing having to do with your disability either. And so, why not make journalism and going back to school my full time job?
Absolutely. I think, coronavirus, it's been hard for a lot of people. But the best we can do is just keep moving forward and being positive and doing what we can.
Yeah, I mean, if someone is listening to my my many episodes, 13,000, over 13,000 episodes on the Ask When feed, if I can put a person in a vehicle who's driving to work for them to put a mask on, for them to walk in to work and say, let's do this, my job is done. Or if I can put a parent in a stable mood enough to let them educate their kids. And yes, you people can use Steve's podcast or use mine to as a homeschooling tool. Well, homeschooling tools are we here because Steve teaches your kids about travel and I teach your kids about diversity. So homeschooling tools are we. And so if we can do, and this goes for you too, Steve, if we can just put people in better frame of mind, it makes our job 10 times better.
Absolutely. And I think one of the great things about podcasting is, you can kind of turn it on and go in the kitchen and maybe cook a meal, but you're listening to this inspirational stuff. So I 100% agree.
Yeah. So, Steve, as we wrap this interview up, do you have any questions for me?
I do have a question. So you had mentioned that you have all these episodes and you've been doing this for a while. You are a seasoned veteran. I'm somebody who's a lot newer to the podcast world. I started this back in March. So my question to you, what advice would you, as somebody who's a real professional at this, give to somebody like me who's a little newer to the podcast world?
Consistency, 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 consistency. Okay. You, let's say, I don't care how bad do you feel. You need to put an episode out at least once a week because now my my fan base, and they know I'm in the midst of a move too. And literally, I'm in the midst of a move, and that's going to start up here in the next couple of weeks. Unfortunately, I thought we had a little bit more time, but no. But I'm going to try and keep it consistent, and I have made it so all I do is hand my assistant the interviews and then she uploads. But for those of you that don't have the luxury of a assistant to help you, I would say pick a day and um, just stick with it. I would say pick one day and stick with it. And my second piece of advice would be batch record, because there are days that you don't feel like doing it. And if you batch record, like I'm doing today, I don't have to worry about content for the next week.
I like that. That's great advice. Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
yeah.
Thank you.
So, consistency. So let's say you decide to do it on a Monday. You do it every single Monday. And if you get in a pinch, you can batch record via Zoom or via one of these other recording devices, StreamYard, Anchor, um, and so you can batch record, and then you can put the episode out whenever you feel like it. I mean, that's, and a lot of podcasts fade after 10 episodes. And I feel like consistency, and I feel like we should be putting more content out now. Now, because of everything that's going on, I mean, people can't function. And as long as we're in their minds, they can at least move to the door to function, and they can dream about the next vacation, or they can learn about the diversity training via me, or they can do something via someone, and instead of binging and watching YouTube, which is happens to be my biggest weakness. I like to watch YouTube, although podcasting is a little bit more because I'm still studying the craft of podcasting. After 10 years, I still studying the craft, and that would be my next piece of advice is for you, get out of your niche. Study something that is a little higher than your niche. Pick a author podcast, pick a diversity podcast, pick me as your mentor in your ears, pick, and this goes for anyone listening, pick something that you're interested in. I have a friend that when she was working with me, I actually taught her how to subscribe to a podcast, and she knows how to do it. And she will send me a bunch of podcasts on finances. And the next thing the next thing she knows, her inbox is flooded with podcasts on finances, and she goes, "Thank you very much," and actually subscribe to Gabo. So take the time to search these podcast players, whether it be the Google Smart Speaker, the Amazon Smart Speaker, or whether it be a podcast catching app, and just pick something that you want to learn about so you can learn along with your kids. Hello, your kids are homeschooling. Why don't you, as a parent, learn about something? Or why not bring diversity or travel into your home so that your kids could have a meaningful conversation at the dinner table at night when you're sitting around the dinner table. You can say, listen to what I learned by a podcast. And because a podcast isn't screen time, and I know back and forth about educators. We have a big debate in the education field. Screen time, too much screen time. Well, a podcast isn't screen time. YouTube, I love my YouTube, but YouTube is screen time. And a podcast, you can actually learn and actually function. YouTube, you can't. So even though these big YouTube stars are in a league of their own, I want to eliminate the screen time as much as I can myself. So that would be my recommendation to you, Steve, is to get out of your comfort zone. You like travel? Let's say, what's your next favorite subject?
I love sports. I'm a big sports person.
Okay. Well, let's go sports. Let's learn about the NFL or soccer, European soccer, or which they call football. But let's learn about your next favorite subject because in even though I learn how different interviewers do it, my favorite podcast is how people craft books, believe it or not. And my favorite podcast is finance, believe it or not. And my ultimate favorite subject is just something that I don't do in my daily life. So when it comes to you, just go search through your podcast app about sports or pick a favorite subject about something that you want to learn about.
Thank you so much for that advice. And you make some really good points. And the cool thing I think is there's like a podcast for everything out there. And there's finance podcasts like you were talking about. There's sports podcasts. Almost any subject or topic, there's going to be a podcast for. So you're totally right. And I appreciate your advice.
No, go out of those new podcasters, go out of your niche. And my favorite podcast, other than the book authorship podcast, which I have a lot of them, is a podcast called Podcast Junkies, run by the fabulous Harry Durant, who I actually got the privilege to meet. And he did an episode with me, and he goes behind the scenes of all these podcasters, but he does it in a really unique way. And one of the questions that he asks is, what's a huge misconception about you? And it's interesting what people say. And I try to listen to him as much as I can. And so, yes, podcasting is going to be my friend when I'm in the midst of a move because I won't have access to Wi-Fi. I won't have access to YouTube. So at least when you don't have access to Wi-Fi, you can at least download a podcast or download an audiobook and listen to it while you're doing it. And so podcasting is going to be my next best friend in the next couple of weeks, along with Steve's podcast there. And so give us the name of your podcast just so people can understand it. And of course, we'll have information in the show notes, but I want people to understand the name of your podcast.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. My podcast is called Destinations Beyond Expectations.
Destinations Beyond Expectations. And yes, you'll have a new subscriber as soon as I get to my phone. because as I said, I was wondering who was going to cue my itch to travel, and I think it's going to be you because as I said, I'm so itchy to get out of there, you guys, that I want a trip I want a trip and go. I want a trip. I'm so itchy to get out of there, you guys. But destinations beyond expectations. And Steve, do you have any other questions for me, or is it more podcasting related?
Let's see. Well, I was going to ask if you don't mind answering this question. You're obviously consistent with your podcast. Because you brought up consistency. Was that something you kind of learned, or are you just naturally a consistent person? Did that come easy for you in your podcast?
In my life, and I'll be more consistent in the next couple of weeks there. In my life, I'm always an organized person. But so that came naturally. But granted, I started out with like a baby podcaster, like Steve, and so, but now my fan base goes, if I don't get my Ask Gwen fix, we have a problem. And the funny thing is that my biggest listenership is coming from California. I have no clue why. And it's coming from the Orlando area too. And so I have absolutely no clue why in California. But when it's a thing in my own life, I've always been consistent with things. My biggest thing is once I get on a mission, I see that mission through. But just be consistent. And the reason why I told my assistant, who happens to be my best friend, first that I was selling my house and moving, and then I'll give you guys a more detailed update on Tuesday when I do another episode with my girlfriend. And so, but but the problem is now that I've grown a big enough fan base, they want Ask When. They have built that into their schedule. So if they don't see Ask When on a Sunday or Tuesday or Thursday, they go, well, has Win fallen off planet? And has Danielle, my assistant, who's also my BFF, fallen off planet? I need my cerebral palsy fix. I need to be educated by Win. I need my Win voice fix. And so that's why I say consistency, because when, like in August, I hit 10,000 downloads by the end of August, and I usually hit between 1,000 and 10,000 per month, and my podcast has been downloaded over 50,000 downloads, and in a time span of me consistently doing it.
That's amazing. Wow, that's great.
And so it's more about consistency. It's more about, okay, because if you drop the ball, people are going to unsubscribe and move on to the next podcast.
Sure, yeah, and those are fantastic numbers, and you probably wouldn't have hit them, right, if you weren't consistent with your podcast.
Not exactly. And I added Sunday. It was supposed to be Tuesdays and Thursdays, but during this time when people are primarily cooking on Sundays, they do cooking on Sundays, I know you people. And so when primarily they're in the kitchen and they're cooking to prepare for the week, I added Sundays. You guys didn't know I added Sundays. You guys just thought I added Sundays for the heck of it. No, I added Sundays just to give you something to take your mind off what's going on. just because I know you're in the kitchen, I know you're mowing the lawn, I know you're doing something to prepare for the week. And so that's why I added Sundays, because I'm like, okay, now I need to meet people where they're at.
Yeah, that's really smart because you looked at what day people are available and free and doing other things, and you capitalized on it. And I think
Yeah,
that's wonderful.
yeah. I mean, and that's my secret by adding Sundays, because I know that people are preparing for the week, and I know my teachers out there dreading on Mondays. But if we can get you guys motivated by Steve's podcast, the travel podcast, or we can get you guys motivated by my podcast on the smart speakers or the Googles, we could get you guys motivated to make it through another week. My big thing right now is hour by hour, minute by minute, and I don't know who's listening to this podcast. Podcast stats don't go into that, but at least I know that people are listening to it and getting motivated by it. And yeah,
Absolutely. I love it. And I agree. I feel like it's wonderful to speak to people and hopefully motivate them, in my case, to travel. So I absolutely love it.
so Steve, where can people find you and where can people get a hold of you?
Yeah, Destinations Beyond Expectations. You can find it on any of the streaming platforms, so Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, on and on. And then I also have a website. If you go to www.dbetravel.com, you can find my website where I have some cool travel blogs as well as all my episodes. And of course, I'm on social medias as well, so Facebook and Instagram.
Yeah, Facebook and Instagram. And I am sure that Steve and I will be collaborating sometime soon, because I I know now that you guys know that I travel. I know that a lot of people think, oh, when there's a disability, she can't travel. Well, here I am proving you wrong, but I just want you guys to be inspired by traveling and inspired by life, you guys. That's the only way we're going to get through this monkey business that's going on.
Absolutely, and I appreciate your energy, and I'm sure so many people really, like I said earlier, your energy is contagious and very inspirational. So
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And I try, and we'll catch you guys later, and we will see you guys in the next podcast. Thanks, you guys. Bye.